Hi guys, Evan here. Today we're looking at PT13 Game 1. It's a pretty basic grouping game. We've just got this shifting block to keep track of. Like many Game 1s, there's not too much complicated action going on here. Okay, so what's going on? We've got market researchers, and they're dividing these people up into two groups, these 8 consumers, F, G, H, J, K, L, and M, and N. And we know that there's going to be 4 in each group, so I went in and just wrote those slots out, and we just know we have to fill all of those up. Let's take a look at our rules. F must be in the same group as J, so you have an FJ block, and that's always going to be together. Whenever you see J, they'll be with F. Whenever you see F, they'll be with J. Our next one says that G and M have to be in different groups. So G and M are always split up. You can write that this way, but make sure, and this is the case whenever you have just 2 groups, like an in and out game or a 2-group game. This means that M and G can never be together, and there's always one spot that will be taken up by either one of them on these 2 sides. So whenever you have M here, G will be there, G here, M there. But we know they're filling up these spots, so we can just write it straight in to our main diagram. Our next 2 rules are conditional rules. They're a little bit more complicated. If H is in group 1, then L is in group 1 as well. And you can write the contrapositive of that. Instead of writing not L1, probably best to just write L2, then H2. You can quickly keep track of the possibilities that this allows. Either H and L can be together over here, or they can be together over here, or alternatively, it's possible to have H in 2 and L in 1. Those are the only 3 possibilities for that. Our next rule, if N's in 2, then G must be in 1. And the contrapositive of that is G not in 1, i.e. 2, then N not in 2, which is the same as N being in 1. Okay, so with that, we're ready to pretty much go on to the questions. Any additional work, there's no additional inferences that I can make straight off the bat here. Okay, question 1, we're looking at acceptability, and they're asking us what group 1 could consist of. So we're only shown group 1, which is a bit unusual, but anything that's not in group 1 you can figure is over in group 2. So take your rules one at a time, just like usual, see where they're violated. First we look at our FJ rule. F and J are together here, that's fine. They're split up here, so that's out. They're together here, that's fine. Here they must be together in group 2, so that's fine. Same here. So only B is eliminated from that rule. Next, G and M. G and M have to be apart, so we need to see one or the other over on this one side, but not both. And here, that's fine in A. Here, they're not, we don't see any of them here, right? So they must be together in group 2, and that's violating the rule. Here, G by itself, that's fine. Here they're together, so that's no good. Okay, and next we take our next rule, H1, then L1. Well, H is in 1 here. Remember, this is group 1, but there's no L, so that's violating the rule. And we're left with D as the correct answer. Question 2 puts K and N together in the same group. We don't know which group yet, but now we've got these 2 blocks. So remember, the key thing that an experienced test taker is seeing here is that these 2, this FJ block and this KN block, are always going to have to be split up into different groups. Otherwise, there'd be too many people in one group. Right? So we basically have 2 possibilities here. FJ and then FJ. You know, and I wouldn't necessarily need to write this out to see it, but we're doing it for the sake of demonstration here. These are your only 2 possibilities. And then the remaining variables are H and L. If you try to put H in over here, then L would be here as well, per this rule. And that doesn't work, right? So we need to put H in 2 and then kick L over here in both groups. So what must be true in these two things? Well, the one thing that's always stable that must be true is this. It's the case in both of these scenarios. So I'm looking at those for the answer. What must be true? H2 right there. Perfect. So B is our correct answer. Question 3 puts F in the same group with H, so it's like adding it onto this block here. And you'll quickly see that once we've got our MG thrown in, there's only then, once F, H, and J are all together, there's no room for anybody else. And if we tried to do it on this one side, it's the same issue as last problem. That would bring in L as well. So the only place we can do that is over on the group 2 side. F, J, H, that kicks L over here, and K is over there as well. And N, there's no rules. Well, yeah, there is a rule about N, but we haven't seen it come into play yet. So what must be true in this situation? G in group 2, we don't know, right? J in group 1, no, has to be over in 2, so that's gone. K in group 1, yes, that has to be true. L in 2, no, that must be false. M in 2, no, we don't know. Okay, so we're left with C as the answer. K has to be in 1. Some people might have made the mistake of going too far with that question and thinking that we can infer where M and G are. But with N in 1, there's no rule that then says where G has to be. This is a rule that if G is in 2, N's in 1. Or if N's in 2, then G is in 1. This N being in group 1 doesn't trigger these rules down here. 4 says that L and M are in group 2. So we have L and M over here, that kicks G into this side. Well, we know that H can't be over here because that would pull L over as well. So that sticks H into this side. And then there's no room for the FJ block over here. Remember, there's only one spot, so we have to put the FJ block over here. And to me, that's a lot of work that we've just done. So even though there's 2 spots that aren't full yet, I'm seeing if we can answer the question before I do any more thinking. And what's somebody who could alternately be assigned to group 1 or 2? Well, whoever's left up top apparently can dance around. So N and K are the 2 left over who could be, dancing around between the 2 groups. So you just have to look for one or the other of them. And A is F, that's no good. B is G, that's no good. C, H, no good. J, no good. We're left with E as the only one remaining. Yeah, it's good. K. K can dance around between the 2 groups here. 5 is a bit of a harder question. It's asking who's a pair of people who could not be together in group 1. But you should be kind of familiar with a theme by now, which is that if we have this FJ block, in somewhere there's not a lot of room for the other variables. So if you look at something that all 3 of these bring in that FJ block, they're the likely answers. We're talking about who can't be in group 1. Well, what about this rule down here? If we have F in with J, and then we pull H in as well, well then L has to come in, according to that rule. So F and H bring all these 4 people in. That forces M and G over into group 2 together, which is not allowed because of this rule right here. So that's no good, and F and H aren't possible. So that gives us B as the correct answer. Much better to use your intuition there about what rules would possibly create a collision rather than trying these all one at a time. I think a experienced LSAT taker is going to look straight at these first and then is going to see that FH is the most promising one to check because it's going to bring a lot of people into group 1. Last question, question 6, is what's asking us what is happening if L is over in group 2. So look here and you'll see that that triggers H being in 2 as well, right? Let me write this more organized with our M and G first. So we have H and L together over here. There's now no room for that FJ block, right? So that's got to be over on this side. And then the last two people who we're not sure where they're going is K and N. Now the question asks us as a follow-up, what's a pair of people who could be together in group 1? F and M, that looks totally fine, right? That kicks G over into 2. Then N's over here, K's over here. All that looks fine. So you do have to keep track of this rule and its effects still. But we can cross FM out. This one, G and N in group 1, that kicks M and K over here. That should be totally fine. So you got to cross that one out as well. What about J and N? I'm getting a theme here, which is that if they're asking us about one of these two, and then one of these two, it's going to be fine, right? What I'm worried about is this G2N1 rule, right? So we can cross out J and N. What about K and M? K and M being over here forces G and N both into group 2. However, if G's in 2, according to this rule, then N has to be kicked into group 1. And thus, we can't have K and M here with G and N over this way. So that's our correct answer. So, tricky last question, but other than that, a fairly straightforward game.